Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Everything You Love. I'm Rob Arnold, and I've got an exciting show for you today where we're going to go over some great questions that hopefully I can give some great answers to, and ultimately, you will be the judge of that, so I hope you'll stick around and hear them all. Also, something new here, I'm also going to be working on restringing my gorgeous ESP custom RA3 while we chat. So hopefully that'll be cool and we'll see how that goes. So if that sounds good, let's do it. All right, so first I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you've been around since the first episode or you're tuning in for the first time here to the show. Welcome. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. I also hope you've checked out my studio build diary that I just recently posted episode 2 of, where I'm documenting my relocation of my old studio into my new home studio here that I'm currently building. I had always had plans to finish my basement here, but things came quicker than they should have because of COVID, and the original plans never included a home studio, but they do now, and you'll see the layout for that and everything that I've accomplished so far in part 3, which will be coming out shortly. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, or you want to find that, I will link it up here and in the description below. And as always, everything I talk about in any of my shows here are always linked in the description below, and there's also other cool stuff and information you may find useful in there. So yeah, check that out. And before we know it, I'm staring at where the new studio is going to be. It's framed right now, and going to be running electrical and doing drywall and stuff. There's some framing right behind me here, behind this backdrop that you can't see yet. But anyways, there's going to be a huge transformation going on here, and it's going to be pretty sweet. So, yeah, I'm gonna get started on this guy here. Got just a Floyd Rose on here. I am using these DR high beams. They put together a custom set for me. The wonderful gentlemen there at DR, which is 11, 13, 20 wound, 30, 42, and 52. I've got some string changing videos already in my string changing series, which you can check out as well. I do some stuff on intonation, Floyd floats, string changing, even an acoustic string changing video. So I'm not going to go into detail about what I'm doing here or whatever, just kind of working on it in the background. Well, we answer some questions here. But yeah, anyways, love the DR stuff, great strings, and yeah, I've been super happy with them. I recommend them. First question that we're going to get into is from a gentleman named Jeremy V. Rob, potential question for a future episode. For chugging riffs, are you a down picker or an alternate picker? I feel like it's cooler to be a down picker, but what are your thoughts on alternate picking being a better technique? Well, you know, as a matter of fact, I totally agree that it's cooler to be a down picker, and here's why. At least for me, I'm 40 years old now, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was getting into Metallica, you know, it was kind of just this thing amongst guitar players. You knew that James Hetfield was the badass because he just downpicked everything. Those fast riffs, you know, that just required a lot of stamina to be able to get through that without up-down picking. And it was almost like this badge of honor if you could make it all the way through long, fast riffs without switching to up-down picking. Now, a lot of the time, no one's going to notice that. If you're up-down picking or whatever, especially live in a concert situation, the lights, everything that's happening, I mean, how are you going to notice that? But when you have a video that you can study like I did, Live Ship Engine Purge, which I've talked about many times as being my heavy metal concert Bible, I studied that thing and just wanted to be that, you know, and was fortunate enough to do some cool things like it, but certainly wouldn't have been as inspired to do so without that video. But James, you know, he was the man, and he downpicked absolutely everything. And so, you know, a lot of the time in the studio, Matt and I'd look at each other and we'd give that like, oh man, our forearms burning look to each other, but you didn't want to give in and up down pick it because then he knew I'd wussed out or vice versa, whatever. But Matt, I gotta say, he's got a better down picking arm than I do. He can last longer. But I thought I'd give an example here of more about what we're talking about. So a a riff from a Chimaira song called Empire, which I recently did a lesson on for my quick riff series that you can check out. The main verse riff there is like this. All down picked. Now, when you're playing that song live, it's faster than the album generally. You know, if adrenaline hasn't kicked in, or maybe it's early in the set and you're not 100% warmed up yet, by the end of the first verse, or definitely into the second verse, your forearm over here is burning from all that down picking. So sometimes you gotta switch it up. Like here, I'm up down picking that. Here's all down pick. Here's up down pick. Now, if you had your eyes closed, I don't know that you'd be able to tell the difference. I'd like to hope not. I'd like to take pride in the amount of practice I've put in with both styles, okay? So don't sell yourself short and think that you can just up, down, pick it. Put the time in and practice down picking. Get that forearm built up, get that sternum built up like James did. And then if you need to take a break and up, down, pick a little bit, sometimes you can do that. You can get away with it. Another example, the stick and knife riff from Comatose, another one I've been talking about lately, and also did a lesson on in my quick riff series. But that one, all down picked. Now, when you get through, especially Matt, he's playing that for like, I don't know, like 2 minutes or something during the solo, and then the post-solo jam where we're doing it. His arm's got to be burning, you know? So maybe you switch that to up, down. It just kind of gives your arm a break. So live for me, every once in a while, I'll switch to the up down when I need to just take that little breather. But for the most part, I try to down pick. I try to be a badass like my idols. So yeah, hope that answers that for you, Jeremy. I think that it's actually going to be pretty difficult to change these strings while I'm talking here, or it's going to take forever, or the timing isn't going to work out, like I'm going to finish the questions way early. I don't know. Well, let's get into another one here. Angel Ray. Hey, Rob, how about SFU and the Elite Guitar Tone? What made you choose 25.75 or 24.75 inch scale over 25.5 inch scale on your signature guitars? Cheers. Well, on the Undead record I did with 6 Feet Under, I recorded the guitars on my ESP GL56, and at the time I had a passive Duncan Pearly Gates pickup in that, and I recorded it through the stock 11 rack plug-in on Pro Tools. And then it was later reamped by Jason Sukoff with what he told me was an Amp Farm plugin, just a tone he dialed in from that old plugin Amp Farm. And I like it. At first, they were trying to, the Audio Hammer guys, Mark Lewis and Jason Sukoff, were trying to just do their best with the guitar tone, and Chris Barnes and I were just really hard on him about it because we just liked the dark, kind of duller tone that the demos had, and we certainly had a case of demoitis. But in the end, you know, those guys were just able to replicate what we wanted there. And I think everybody was happy in the end. At least I am. I hope Barnes is, you know. But I think that overall the production on Undead is totally awesome, and I love it. So yeah, just an Amp Farm plug-in, and it shows. I'll give more examples of this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, but it goes to show that whether it's an amp sim or a impulse response or an actual amp or whatever, it's just all about the player, what the engineers do to it, and how cool the riff is, you know. And that really is what makes up a great guitar tone, in my opinion, rather than just some single component or some amp or anything like that. The Elite Guitar Tone, that was just my go-to, just my Chimaira 6505 Plus settings. And you can see and hear a ton more about that in my Chimaira guitar tone and riffage video. So same amp settings for that. The only difference is, instead of the Mesa cabinet, which I would typically use with Chimaira live and in the studio, I went with my Marshall 1960 cabinet, which to me is definitely brighter and like a little more mid-range. little tighter, and the Mesa just has a lot more low end, and it's a lot darker. So I don't know if those two tones are reflected that way in terms of the production on the records, Chimaira versus Elite Total Destruction record, but that's the difference. Exact same 6505 head end settings, and the difference between a Mesa and a Marshall cab. And then the scale length. So I'm honestly so surprised with how many questions I get about this, and the answer is I don't know. I don't know why the guitars have a 24.75 versus a 25.5, and why that 3/4 of an inch makes such a difference to so many people. The truth is, I have never paid attention to that, and a great friend of the band's, great friend of mine, John Hall, who's helped design every custom guitar and signature guitar for Matt and I, and has worked along with us in ESP. He would leave those. We would leave those details to him. There'd be some big order form that we'd fill out the nitty gritty details. Matt and I mostly cared about just how it looked and all that, But some of the details about stuff like that, some of the stuff we didn't even understand on the order form, John Hall would just take care of that for us. And so the scale length happened to be one of those things. I've never once thought to myself, wow, this neck feels longer or shorter than my other guitars. I just kind of pick them up and play them, and it is what it is. They all feel good to me. I've never even considered, wow, is this neck longer or shorter? I've never thought that at all. And until this platform existed where I could be asked so many questions about it, I never knew that it was even a thing, honestly. I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, a lot of people who are really into those little details about the guitar and stuff, but I want to put an end to it right here for myself personally, that I have no idea why my guitars have different scale lengths. Let's see here. Ed Vigors. Hey Rob, got a question for you. Chimaira rarely did cover songs, and there are only 3 I can think of. Fascination Street, Disposable Heroes, and Wild Thing. What made you guys want to cover these songs in particular? Wild Thing, which seems so under Chimaira. Much love. Un-Chimaira. Seems so un-Chimaira. It is un-Chimaira, and I'll start with that. While we were making the Chimaira album, The Age of Hell, in 2011, that was when a bunch of that Charlie Sheen stuff started happening. And he just went crazy or something, and there was a ton of media exposure about that. I don't even remember the story. I didn't pay much attention to it, but he was going crazy. It was all about that winning stuff or whatever. But Mark Hunter is all about that type of stuff, the current events, about what's going on in that world and everything, and and he's a smart guy when it comes to that stuff. How to make the most of the media and just play with it, So anyways, he said, we're here in a recording studio. Why don't we get on this and record Wild Thing, which was the hit song from the Charlie Sheen movie Major League, which, is based around the Cleveland Indians. We're from Cleveland. It just seemed like the right thing to do, a cool thing to do at the time. Like, let's do a heavy version of Wild Thing. And so that's how that came about. And actually, I think it turned out pretty cool. And I absolutely love that movie. So pretty cool. But yeah, that's that. That's the only reason why we covered Wild Thing, because at the time we happened to be in the recording studio, Charlie Sheen went nuts. Then Fascination Street. So that's a Cure cover. And I'll be honest, I don't know anything about the Cure. I'm not a Cure fan. I just remember back in 2000, Mark or Jason Hagar, our original Chimaira guitarist, came to us and said that they had been approached to do this disintegrated a Cure tribute compilation, and that we had to choose a song. And so those guys chose Fascination Street. Again, I had never heard it before. I can't remember if Jason was the Cure fan, or Mark, or both of them, or whatever. But I simply just played ball and learned what I needed to learn, and we recorded it and everything. And that's it about that one. And then Disposable Heroes. That's actually the Chimaira cover song that I'm most proud of, and that's on the Kerrang! I forget what it is, 20th or 25th anniversary tribute to Master of Puppets, and there's a bunch of cool bands on there, Machine Head, Trivium, and we were given the choice between all the songs, people were signing up, or all the bands they asked, songs were getting taken, And we had the choice between Leper Messiah and Disposable Heroes. And while we loved both songs, we ended up going with Disposable Heroes, obviously. And like I said, that's the Chimaira cover I'm most proud of, because generally I don't like cover songs, not even doing them myself, or in a band, but I just don't like cover songs unless I hear it for the first time as the cover. For instance, like Zero the Hero by Cannibal Corpse. It's on like a Hammer Smash Face like import or something like that. I forget. But anyways, I love that song. I had no idea that I think it's a Black Sabbath song. I had no idea about that. Am I Evil by Metallica. I first heard it by Metallica. When you listen to I don't even know who it was, Diamond Head or something like that, but I don't know. To me, it's bunk compared to Metallica's version. Same with The Hunt by Sepultura. I mean, I love that song on Chaos AD, and I didn't even know it was a cover song until I find out later. So on the other end of things, though, a lot of the time when I hear a band covering a song of a song that I love, I just don't like it because it isn't as good, in my opinion. There are exceptions, of course. Some people do great jobs, but Sweet Dreams, Manson, that's a cool cover. Like I said, there are some here and there. But for the most part, I just don't really enjoy covers. I don't think they're as good as the originals, and so I don't like doing them with Chimaira. And especially because I like to, especially like a song, Disposable Heroes. To me, some people say, oh, you do a cover song, you put your own spin on it and stuff like that. Well, Metallica, to me, the challenge is just trying to do it as close as possible to they did it, because it's so impressively amazing. What needs to be changed about it? What could I do differently to a Metallica song that's going to make it any better? Nothing. So I'm going to strive and show the inspiration those guys have had on me personally, by doing the best I can. It was a challenge to make all those riffs sound great and keep up. Going back to what I said about James, I mean, those riffs in that era, those guys were on fire, and that was tough. And Andals, myself, Mark, we all put a lot of work into covering that song, because a lot of people are going to judge you on that, especially a song like Metallica by one of the most popular metal band out there. You got to try and kill it, or else you're going to get torn apart, because you got to do it justice. So, yeah, anyways, again, proud of that one. And I say this jokingly, not really jokingly, it's true, but some people have heard me say that my only gold record that I have in my collection, which is soon going to hang on the walls of my new studio, is from that Kerrang Master of Puppets tribute album. And the joke that I always say is that I had to cover another band's song to finally get a gold record. Yeah, I realized here, there's no way I'm going to finish stringing this thing, because I guess it's like walking and chewing gum, like I say, whatever. I don't think I can talk totally, unless I'm talking about the guitar and what I'm doing, But we'll keep going here and see what happens. Maybe I'll get to, I don't know, maybe I'll get one or two strings down here. All right. Trevor Phillips. If you could Frankenstein Andals, Kevin, and Austin into one drummer, what aspects would you take from each one? Good question. Man, Andals. Creativity, finesse. Kevin, pure power, enthusiasm. I like that about him. Austin, precision, bounce, adaptability. And I want to say that every one of those guys, Andals, Kevin, and Austin, all share all of those attributes. But the particular ones that I guess I chose to mention for each one were the first to come to mind. But they all have all those things, or else I wouldn't have seen something special in them. And I've been so blessed to have played with drummers like that who are just incredibly amazing. But no two drummers are the same, and one might be a little better at something than the other. But they all make up what was part of the process, and they all make up the albums that they were a part of. But I tell you, together, if I could Frankenstein all those things, man, be a monster. But they were all monsters, and maybe that would be what would destroy the monster. Maybe what they had is their unique special power, and that's the way it should have been. Who knows? But cool thing to think about. Mr. Keith Davies. What's up, Keith? Keith is wondering what my thoughts on Chimaira's Crown of Phantoms albums are. Obviously, it's the only album that uses Chimaira's name that you're not involved with. I was wondering what you thought about the whole thing, musically and non-musically. Well, Keith, the truth is that I've never really paid attention to it. When my time in Chimaira ended, and it didn't end pleasantly, just from a lot of mixed emotions and things like that, I just closed the book on it. I didn't pay attention to what those guys were doing. I didn't pay attention to anything Chimaira, and that's the way I justified it to myself, to try to make that separation from Chimaira easier on myself. Almost like watching an ex-girlfriend bang another dude or something. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, perhaps I'm being immature and dramatic or whatever, but you know, I just had to stay away from it. And so, of course, I've heard over the past now, you know, however long it's been out, I've heard the snippets here and there. I've heard a song, seen clips of a video here and there, and it's incredible, of course. There's no doubt about that. All those guys are fantastic players. Mark killed it, you know, like he always does. So I know it's badass. I know all those guys are amazing at what they do, and I know they put together something fantastic, but I've never really just dove into it and enjoyed it, because I can't enjoy it like that. I don't think I'll ever be able to enjoy it like that, just because it's a kind of a dark part of my past that, again, I tried to close the book on, and that's the way I deal with things. Sometimes I just stored it away, and that's that. But I have been thinking now that perhaps it's time to check it out, and I thought I wanted to know if you guys would be interested in what if I dedicated an entire episode, whether it's Everything You Love or some episode, you know, where I just sit and we listen to the record together, you know, and go through it, and I give my thoughts, even though I get a ton of anxiety anytime anybody asks me to critique their stuff. I can't stand it. But so I'm not going to really critique it, but, you know, we could jam it and talk about stuff and maybe make a good time out of it. Like, oh, that part's sick. Oh, blah, blah. You know, I know there's going to be parts where I'm like, dude, listen to Austin. You know, that's so rad and stuff like that. So if that would interest you guys, let me know. And if it gets enough approval in the comments below, then, you know, I'll more likely than not do something like that where we could check out that album together. So if you think that'd be interesting, let me know. Pierre Gutierrez. Hi, Rob. I got a question for Everything You Love. Whatever happened with Matt DeVries? I know he was playing bass for Fear Factory and Nitro, but what is his current situation with Chimaira? You've been making videos with Mark, Jim, and I've seen photos with you and Spakuza and Andals. Hope everything is good with the one and only MFA. Well, Pierre, I'm sure you know by now that you can hear the answer to that question in Everything You Love, episode 15, the one right before this, because I sat down and chatted at length with Mr. Matt DeVries and just specifically answered this question for the opportunity to plug that show. So if you missed it and you want to hear what's going on with Mr. Matt DeVries, my partner in crime in Chimaira, then you can do that in Everything You Love, episode 15. Again, in the description below. So yeah, that's that. WZ. Rob, Chimaira is seriously the best band ever. That's awesome, man. I miss the band so much. You guys just crushed so hard. I've had the pleasure of seeing Chimaira live quite a few times and got my ass kicked every single time. I don't know if you've talked about this subject at all, but could you give some information about the track Army of Me from the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack in an upcoming episode? I know it was added to the Impossibility of Reason Special Edition album later, but why was it cut from the original album? It was such a steamroller of a song. I have never understood why it was left off the record. Thanks so much, man. Stay well, and greetings from Canada. Us diehards really miss you. Greetings to Canada. I always love playing Canada. So, funny story about Army of Me. I feel like maybe I've discussed this before, but oh well. With Army of Me, we were writing it during the Impossibility of Reason sessions early on, before we had even moved to the upstairs of our new practice spot at the time, which was upstairs, which you see a lot of in the Dehumanizing Process DVD, especially that time where we were there with Ricky. There's even stuff with Andals up in that room. And then we eventually moved down to the big room downstairs that I eventually turned into Rob Arnold World Studio. But before that, when we first started writing The Impossibility of Reason, and I can remember some songs I remember from that early studio, Pictures in the Gold Room, Cleansation, The Dehumanizing Process, Stig Murder, Army of Me. And then once we got to the new place, I recall stuff like Pure Hatred. Implements of Destruction, definitely in that early practice spot too. But at any rate, I can recall when we put together Army of Me that Mark, for some reason, just wasn't there for a couple days. All of us, you guys have all heard me say that all of us, every guy in the band was at practice every single day, but maybe he was sick or like out of town or something like that, but he was gone for a couple days. And he showed up, and we had put Army to Me together, and we played it for him, and he said, "That's the best Chimaira song I've ever heard." I told him about this recently again, or I don't know, maybe it was within the past few years, but that's what he said at the time. And then sure enough, it ends up being a B-side. For those people that don't know, a B-side is an album written for, or a song written for an album that doesn't actually make the album. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of the time, the album has contractually a number of songs that have to be on it, and that's written into your record contract. So let's say, for instance, I don't know, the album has to have 12 tracks on it, and then they also want 2 extra songs that they can give exclusively to for movie soundtracks, such in this case Army of Me, or like for import-export stuff, like it's going to be on some like Japanese version of it. It may have an extra song, and that makes it special, entices people to buy it because it's got a different song or a different version of a song or something like that. And anyways, those songs that don't make the album are called B-sides, and they're saved to be used in some other way. So another like piece of advice I have for any bands making records is that don't make your sequencing, which is the order your songs are in on your album, don't set your mind on that until after the mix is done. Because a lot of the time there could be some song you think is totally awesome, and by the time the mix is done, it just doesn't turn out that great. Or on the contrary, maybe there's a song that isn't that great during the writing process, nobody's really stoked on it, but the recording and the mix turns out fantastic and ends up being a totally badass song. Example, 6 Feet Under Undead record, the Formaldehyde song 2 on the record, was written off as a B-side. We just didn't like it. But one day Kevin called me and he's like, "We got to give this song some new life. I have this new idea for the chorus riff." And he hummed this in a voicemail to me. Which was a slight variation of like what we had, but it just put a new spin on it. And I was like, all right, I'll give that a try. I redid the chorus, resent it to Chris. He got a new life. He sent it back with fresh vocals. It ended up being the lead-off single for the album, the first song anybody heard, and it ended up being track 2 on the record. So you just never know as the process goes on what songs are going to make the album, what songs aren't, what order they're going to be in. So decide on that stuff after your mix, because that'll reveal so much more about the material and its strength. So anyways, back to Army of Me. By the end of the Impossibility of Reason process, it ended up just not making the record for whatever reason. Maybe we didn't think it was strong enough, and that's all just our opinion at the time. Would I trade it right now for another song? Maybe, I don't know. But at the time, we thought that all the other songs were stronger, so it became a B-side. But it's funny how important film and TV and things like that are, licensing, stuff like that, for bands, because so many people know that song because of Freddy vs. Jason, because it's a movie, and it's just in the credits at the end. But so many people know that song, and we can play it live anytime we want, and a lot of people know it, a lot of people request it, a lot of people ask for it, a lot of people want to see it in quick riffs, stuff like that. So it's just incredible that a song that didn't make the album has gained so much popularity just because of its placement in a movie. Very important. Another thing that's hard to have happen. So many people think, we'll just gonna write music and have it placed in movies. That's way easier said than done. Trust me, go ahead and try it. So we got lucky, is what I'm saying, that ended up making it into a movie. All right. Keith Brown. Rob, I gotta ask, since you, Mark, and Matt were the main riff writers, can you name your favorite Matt riff /song and Mark riff /song? I can, Keith. At least just what comes to mind right now. Matt, Paralyzed, which is a Resurrection B-side. It's funny, now you all know what a B-side is. And Paralyzed, well, it's one of my favorite tunes, just didn't make the record because at the time we didn't think it was strong enough. But in hindsight, it probably would have been, because I love that song. I love Mark's performance. I love all the riffs, everything about it. It was fun putting it together. I believe it was a song that Matt just wrote on his own during the Resurrection, like demoing process. And sometimes, like, you know, you have a collection of songs you want to start working on with the band or whatever. It just kept getting moved down the pile, and we never really got into it until we were in the studio. And every studio session usually has like one song or two that you save until the studio, like it's not complete, or you're waiting for the producer's 2 cents, or you're like, oh, you know, this one's cool, but we'll just wait till we get in the studio to kind of finish it off or whatever. And I believe that was the case with Paralyzed. I don't think Mark had written anything for it, and like vocally, and he just like had some fun with it. I think he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go in and death metal this thing. And Mark has an amazing death metal voice. On his early band Skipline before Chimaira, around the scene here, we all just wigged out over, you know, he'd have his like normal singing voice, and then they'd have a couple like super death metal parts where all of a sudden he'd go in and he'd sound like Chris Barnes, you know, or you know, David Vincent or something. And it was just totally awesome, and we loved that. So to hear Mark's like death metal voice like that pretty much over a whole song was a treat for me. So that's the one, just killer riffs. Really enjoy Paralyzed. And then Mark, favorite riff and song. First one that comes to mind there is the mighty Painting the White to Gray, which was one of our most popular songs early on, and did really well for us. I think that was one that he and Andals just put together after hours one day or something, but it ended up being real cool. Some real cool drum beats in that. I think it was kind of inspired by Slipknot at the time and what was happening with that. With those guys, but yeah, it ended up being a really popular song for us. It was on our original EP, This Present Darkness, and then we did a re-recorded version for Pass Out of Existence. And yeah, it's just cool riffs, real cool bounce, and yeah, real good flow to it. I like his vocals. It's got that almost like rappy verses type thing, which is cool. And that's kind of like that Slipknot thing I was talking about, that they were doing a lot of that at the time, where it's still ultra heavy, but it's got like, I don't know if new metal's, yeah, probably new metal-ish thing to it or whatever, but pretty cool. Anyways, I'll of course link those songs, both Paralyzed and Painting the White to Gray, for you below, so you can hear what I'm talking about. Okay, last question here, Master DFTW. So when is Chimaira coming back? Unfortunately, Master, your guess is as good as mine. I'll be honest with you, as some of you guys picked up on, that kind of spoke about in Everything You Love 15, we had started talking again, and we're kicking around ideas and kind of putting things into motion until COVID hit. Goddamn COVID, ruining everything, you know? So, yeah, so now it's just kind of, we're going to wait and see what happens. You know, it's certainly not smart to really be planning anything musical in Chimaira's position, I'd say. I don't know. We got to wait till the pastures are green again and then try to get in there and feed, you know. But anyways, if you want to know, the best way to know is by tuning in here to the show and coming back. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel so far. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so, as if there is any news of Chimaira or any news about music that I got going on, anything like that, of course, this is the place where I'm going to tell everybody first. And I want all you guys to know first that are here tuning in and supporting. If you're interested in supporting the show at a greater level, you could do so at patreon.com/RobArnoldWorld. I'd appreciate that. Thank you to all my current patrons. Thank you to everybody who's been tuning in. Really means a lot to me, and I hope you will join me on the next one. Don't forget, I got an instructional DVD you can check out at the Rob Arnold World store, robarnoldworld.com/store, filled with riffs, tricks, tips, everything. We talked about Empire a little bit before. I think I teach that solo in that song too, maybe some riffs from that. Just some cool stuff. They're running out, only got a few of them left. I'm happy to sign one for you and send it out anywhere worldwide. Again, robarnoldworld.com/store. Thank you guys so much. Cheers, and I hope to see you again on the next one.